Hello and welcome to Current Affairs on JTV. Today I'm joined by Avner Gvaryahu, who's currently based in the US and is the US coordinator for the organisation Breaking the Silence, and here in the JTV studio with Noru Tsalic, who's a former Israeli soldier and a current advocate for Israel. Now the reason we're doing things in a rather strange way today is because Avner did not wish to be interviewed concurrently with Noru, so do bear with us while we flip between the two. Okay, Avner, Breaking the Silence, what's your goal?
The goal of Breaking the Silence is very simple, to speak about what's happening in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip under Israeli control, where a group of former Israeli soldiers who all served in the IDF, and we want to break the silence about the prolonged military occupation that we were part of and that our government is continuing.
But to what end?
Well, it's pretty simple. Till the Israeli occupation ends.
Okay, I get that, and you want to obviously influence the Israeli political scene. Why then is there a US coordinator for Breaking the Silence? What are you doing in the US?
I'm here pursuing my master's, and that's what brought me here. Breaking the Silence does not have an office in New York, and the fact that I'm here is because that I'm studying. But what we try to do when we have an opportunity like this, when I'm here in the States, or when we have a representative visiting the UK, for example, then we always try to reach out to communities that we believe are crucial for this discourse. And part of these communities, and this is part of the reason that we're having this conversation, is speaking to Jewish communities around the world who do not live in Israel, but care deeply about Israel.
But there's another audience you're also playing to, isn't there? Your donors. And you have a lot of foreign funding who are not Jewish organisations, governments, other charities. You also speak to them, don't you?
Yeah, we also get funding from Western democracies who are close allies to Israel, and we're very proud of that funding. And what we're asking to do is separate Israel from the occupation. We believe Israel not only has a right to exist, right, but we're going to do whatever we can for Israel to strive and prosper. But in order to do that, definitely today in 2016, we believe that loving Israel means hating the occupation. The support that we think Israel should get from Jews around the world, but not only from anybody around the world, is say, of course, Israel has a right to exist.
But isn't
Let's not fight about 1948.
But isn't it true?
Fight about 1967.
Isn't it true?
Because that's the area that we believe is questionable, and we have to decide what we want.
But you've just stated a political line. Let me stop you for 1 second. Let me stop you for 1 second. You're making a very political point. Isn't it true? It's your politics that's driving what you're doing, not the actuality of things. Let me give you a specific issue to address, my last point. The organisation NGO Monitor has looked through some of your funding. Some of your funding was tied specifically to you having to obtain negative testimonies about the Israeli army. Isn't that correct?
Breaking the Silence started in 2004, and we've been around for over a decade. Our mission is, as we've always stated it, is to meet soldiers, publish their testimonies, and talk about it. So I never understood this revelation of NGO Monitor, for example, saying that we got funding for doing what we always say that we're doing.
But it's quite simple. If you're given...
I would maybe agree with you that the way that they phrased that sentence wasn't smart, because it's silly to think that we have to get specific kind of testimonies in order to do our work. We just have to listen to the soldiers. And if you guys back in the UK, or if my government back in Israel will just listen to the soldiers, we believe we could move forward instead of ignoring the reality.
Okay, Avner, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Noru, well, we've heard what Avner said. He said go and speak to soldiers. Well, you're a former soldier. What do you make of that?
Well, Alan, only a few days ago, I was listening to this young officer, Israeli military doctor, and he was telling us how in Gaza he treated in the field and helped save the life of a Hamas terrorist, who had just attacked an Israeli force and got wounded in the process. He also told us how he, in the midst of the war, he helped a Palestinian woman deliver her child, her baby. And that wasn't an anonymous testimony of the type Breaking the Silence is peddling. The chap was standing in front of perhaps 200 people and telling us his story.
Can I just interrupt you? So most of the testimonies of Breaking the Silence are anonymous?
All of them are anonymous.
All of them, okay.
There's no way to identify the soldier or the exact location and so on and so forth. Okay?
Okay, so it's anecdotal is what you're saying, and this is not verifiable?
It's not verifiable. We don't know whether those testimonies exist at all, other than being written in a report. We don't know if that's what the soldier really said. We don't know whether that's all that soldier said or just selected passages from what he said. There's no way to verify any of that.
Okay, Avner was seemingly suggesting that there's a policy from on high to commit human rights abuses. When you were a soldier, was that the case?
Not at all, not at all. We never went into the West Bank. I served a lot in the West Bank, including during the Intifadas. We never went there without having a few days of preparation first. We were instructed very clearly in the rules of opening fire and how to use the non-lethal means of controlling the crowd when needed and things like that. I've never come across an order or an instruction that I would consider morally problematic. If I had come against something like that, I would have challenged it. And Israeli soldiers, believe you me, challenged such things. The very comrades of Avner Gvaryahu have called some of his stories Shia lies. The people who served with him in the same unit. Now I'm sure Avner doesn't intend to lie. I'm sure he believes in what he's saying. Some people, when they're driven by a particular ideology, by a particular political agenda, they will persuade themselves of certain things. There are people who still believe that 9/11 was the work of the Mossad or 7/7 was the work of the MI5. People who choose to believe can believe in absurd things that we normal people would consider absurd.
And does it therefore worry you that so much of their funding comes from foreign sources?
Well, it's interesting that he said we're funded by democracies. I'm going to show you here that it's not just democracies, and in fact, one of the biggest donors is a Palestinian organization. I have it here, you see. This is a Palestinian organization. They distribute funding, and one of the organizations they choose to fund is Breaking the Silence. Now, what do they find them for? They find them in order to document human rights and international humanitarian law violations by Israel and Gaza. Just to remind you that Breaking the Silence recently published a report about Israeli army misbehavior in Gaza. So this is the organization who paid quite a sizable amount of money to Breaking the Silence to document those kind of violations. Now, I don't know about you, Alan, but for me, when a Palestinian organization funds or pays money to document Israeli violations, it sounds like very fishy business. It sounds like political warfare and not real human rights activism.
on that point, Noru, we have run out of time, so I want to thank you for joining me here in the studio. Thank you all for joining us at home, and look forward to seeing you again for Current Affairs on JTV.